Hey everybody, welcome to one more round. Today I'm very excited. A couple of years ago, I had met Sean Alfonso. He is the husband of Megan Alfonso, who owns Girl About Town. And we talked at the event for like an hour. We had a really good conversation, and we talked about him coming on the podcast because he's got a very unique background in helping dads, and we love being dads. So I just reached out to him recently, and he actually had today open, which is cool because next week, if you're watching this, it's probably this week, is Father's Day. So we're gonna have a good conversation today, about being dads and really some of your expertise too. But thanks for coming on. And before we get into that, just give me a little background on who you are, so our audience knows, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, sounds good, Josh. Thanks again for having me on. I'm
Yeah,
glad
absolutely.
we finally got this done.
For sure.
It was forever. And always on my part as well, that I just couldn't find the time to make it happen. But I'm glad we're finally here, getting this done. And no perfect time right before Father's Day, right?
Right.
So it's always God's plan.
Yes.
Even though we never know what it's going to
Yep.
be. So a little bit about me. I got married young, had a couple kids. That marriage didn't work out. My ex-wife committed to her job and her career. So I was, the primary caregiver even after our divorce of our two daughters. I had them, over 70% of the time, and then she would travel, so I'd have them even more. And it was always in me for some reason, as even a young kid, that I wanted to be a dad. Didn't matter. And it's funny too, because I remember having conversations with friends in high school about, because my parents were divorced, and I'm like, and my mom's actually divorced twice. I'm like, never getting married. Number one cause of divorce is marriage.
Right.
I'm like, I will adopt kids. I'll find a surrogate. I know I want kids, but I don't know if I want marriage. Got married young, got my babies, and I did not take fatherhood biblically at that time. I got the prize that I wanted, and all I did was dote on my children and love on my babies and try to be the best dad that I could. And in doing that, I was a horrible husband. The Bible is very, very specific. God, your wife, your children, your job. In that order. And
Right.
if you don't do it in that order, shit gets out of balance.
It does, yeah.
And for me, it did. It got out of balance. And I definitely put my children well ahead of my ex-wife, well ahead. So, there was some conflict there. We ended up splitting, parting ways, and I was, primarily a single dad and of two daughters, which is kind of crazy because you have to look at everything from a different lens. I knew it was important to me never to have my children go to school and have like disheveled uniform or disheveled hair to where the teachers would be like, oh, she must be with dad this day. Or, so I actually went to classes on how to do, so I had the girl that would cut my hair. I said, hey, can you teach me how to braid? So she said, yeah, sure, come on in. She made her assistant sit in the chair and put a wig on, and she taught me how to braid hair, taught me how to do buns. And I took it seriously. I'd record it. I'd practice at home. Because I wanted to make sure that the girls had the ability to be girls in a man's world.
Right.
Because I'm all man.
Yeah.
I'm not, there's really nothing feminine much about me except for the fact that I love kids.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a man's world. I'm a slob. I'm messy. I cuss like a sailor. I love God and love church, and that's about it.
Yeah.
There's not much taking them to dance. We had season tickets to the WNBA, for probably 5 or 6 years because I wanted them to just be around powerful women. That was my goal. They went to dance, all the girly stuff. I did not want them to be limited in that aspect. And of course I tried golf and soccer and all the other stuff, but none of that stuck. Dance and acting stuck with both of my daughters. And then I got remarried, met an amazing woman, got remarried, and through many, many, many rounds of IVF, we finally have our son. So
Yeah.
now I have a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and now a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. So you've lived the full spectrum of dad life, from
correct.
that
And
standpoint.
I'm going through it all again. Right when I was out, they pulled me back in. I'm like,
That's so cool. Well,
yeah,
let's go back to early days.
yeah,
The obviously the circumstance was unique, right? You got divorced. You have split time with your kids. You had far more time. But what are some of the things that, in reflection, now that you have your son, what are some of the things you're doing now that you wish you would have done then, or you learned from that
yeah.
experience?
I think the most important thing is just time, right? And I did it with my children, and I think it's something that I did and I liked, and so I'm going to continue to do, is time. I always told myself with my daughters and continue with my son, you only have 18 summers. That's it. 18 summers. After that, you don't control anything. You really don't have much of a say in anything.
Yeah.
And now I would even change that statement and say you probably have 15 to 16 summers.
Mm-hmm.
Because once the kids start driving, now they have their jobs. Even before that, they have their sports and their activities. So those things kind of dictate how the family does things, right? Vacations or this, that, or, things that you want to do. But it's a very limited amount of time that you have to truly impact their life. And during the school year, it's even less because somebody else that you barely know is impacting your child's life, far more than you are.
Yeah, for 8 hours a day.
Yeah. So the summers is really when you have a couple of uninterrupted months to really try to impact their life. And you have, like I said, only 18 of them.
Yeah.
So time is the most important thing. We always want to make more money. We always want a bigger house, a faster car, all these things. But the time's the one thing that you never get back. You can't add more. I can't, with my 20-year-old, I can't be like, could we please go to Disneyland now?
Yeah. So what does that look like for you? What does the summer look like to you then? Obviously Pierce is young, but what are the things that you make sure that you're hitting these things every single year to make sure he's, number one, getting family time, but number two, he's watching, because more is caught than taught. We know that, right? More of what your kids learn is more from what you do. So what are the things you're doing in the summer to be intentional about those types of things?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what they see is what they learn, right? Mm-hmm. So for us as a family, it's doing stuff together as a family.
Yeah.
Like we're a unit. If he's not at his little preschool summer camp, then the three of us, me, my wife, and my son, are doing things together. My 18 summers are over with my girls. Mm-hmm. I barely get to see them. Bella, she has friends and jobs and, things that the mall, there's things that she needs to do. And Ava, she has her life. So you'll always see us together because that's important is family. And then the simple things like when we are together, how my wife is treated, right? We're holding hands. My arm is around her. I kiss her. I hug her. I love her. I open the doors for her. Pierce is 3 years old. He carries his mom's purse. Not because I tell him to or ever have told him to. It's just because it's instinctual. Yeah. He tries to open her car door. Not quite strong enough. But he will hold a door open for anybody. And it's because of the things that he sees, the way that I treat my wife, the way that I treat his mom. One of the proudest moments so far in my life of parenting Pierce is him and I were at Costco. We had to pick something up. Megan had given us a list of things to get. And it was a new Costco because we're at a different house right now for a little bit. And so it was a new Costco and I'm lost, right? Because I know my Costco.
Right, yeah.
I don't know this Costco. Yeah. And so we're lost. And so we pass by the flowers, and Pierce is like, Dad, we got to get flowers for Mom. And he is so intentional with the love of his mother because I'm so intentional with the love for my wife that he probably walked around that kiosk like 4 or 5 times to find the perfect bouquet to get mom. Like it had to be the right colors. And I'm like, yes, like he's picking it up. And it's stuff like that, the family time, whether it's going camping, you know, going to get pizza after karate, whatever it may be, but it's the time that you have to put into it.
I can relate 100% because like, I know I went through some pretty bad health issues a couple of years ago, and I don't feel like I was unintentional before, but afterwards I became real intentional. You know, every summer, like we took a road trip across the country to Myrtle Beach. We were gone for 17 days, spent 7 days there, but we every place we would stop, we'd find like what was the best rated restaurant, and it could be a dive, it could be something nice, didn't really matter, but we made these memories. And then last year we went all the way up to Big Sky and then down through Jackson Hole when we were gone for 14 days as well. And it's like they talk about these trips, and now my son Zach, he just turned 13, he has been talking to me about like lifting weights for a long time, you know, because they see me, that's just part of my routine, it's what I've done for a long time. Kind of keeps me sane. And Zach's like, can I get my membership finally? So the last 2 weeks ago we got his membership, and I'm going, and I'm not even working out with him. I'm like taking him and I'm showing him how to do all this stuff, and I can just see, because he's one that's a little more reserved. He's not always chatterbox about everything. So getting him to open up, and like he's smiling, we're having fun at the gym. It's like that's a special connection, but it's the time together, right? It's not, hey, go to the gym, I got your membership, go do it yourself. Like that, I look at as an opportunity to bond with him and to, you know, hopefully help him develop some great habits, you know, in the process. But yeah, I mean, being intentional with and together. Like there's something about being together as much as you can, like you were saying.
Yeah.
We always try to have our kids all together. In fact, I'm here today with you, but my wife and kids are out golfing, right?
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to have the housekeeper come today, and we ended up calling her off. But they're like, oh, well, we got to be out of the house, so they're out golfing, having fun, and I think that's super cool. And I'm meeting them later. Last night we did night swimming.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the types of things I think. It's not all about trying to teach them everything, but that's what I want them to carry on to their kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And the road trips are amazing.
Yeah.
I love road trips. Inexpensive.
Yes.
And you get a lot of quality time. We did a road trip when the girls were younger, and we drove. My family has a house in Lake Tahoe, so we drove from Phoenix to Lake Tahoe. We've only done it once. We probably won't do it again. And Megan like plotted all these cool things for us to stop and see.
Yeah.
Like on the way there and on the way back, and she packed us like lunches and all this stuff. It was really cool, and the kids still talk about it to this day.
Yeah.
Like, remember when we ate lunch at like that abandoned car place?
Yeah.
And, like all the buses and stuff. It's pretty cool, and you do get that time, that bonding time. You could sing some songs in the car. The only thing that I would tell parents, monitor the amount of screen time you give them while they're in the car, because it's a moot point if everyone's on their own device and dad's drive and listen to a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you guys are together, but you're separate.
Yeah.
Like, say, okay, for every 30 minutes or hour we all have our devices, everybody can be on their stuff. Then there's an hour of like song singing, license plate games, whatever it may be. And you have to be intentional about it, because if not, that's the way we all are, right? I want to listen to what I want to listen to and do what I want to do.
I'm totally guilty of that.
My wife wants to do work, while she's going, and then you got all the kids on their devices. And we're trying to, especially with Pierce, we're trying to be very intentional with screen time.
Yeah.
Like Megan and I, it's funny, we'll like high five after a dinner. We'll go out to dinner, and if we made it through the dinner without anybody crying because there was no screens, it's a success. And we don't care how many people look at us because my kid's throwing salt packets up in the air, or he's loud with his car on our table. To us, we're just like, he doesn't have a screen.
Yeah.
So it's going to be what it's going to be.
Right.
And we eat dinner really early. It's your fault for eating this early. Turn down your hearing aid if
Right.
you're, if you're the senior citizen,
Yeah.
early bird 4:45 special.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because we always think like it's going to be a negative. Like people are looking at this negative. 99% of the time, especially like the older, grandparents, great grandparents
They
age,
didn't have that.
they're like, we're so impressed he didn't have an iPod the whole time
Yeah.
or an iPad the whole time.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we're trying to do that. But they see their grandkids that are just like zoned out
Right.
at dinner, not engaging. And our 3-year-old man, he is rambunctious, so he's engaging,
Yeah.
but it's loud, it's disruptive, and
He's a
I'm
3-year-old
like,
boy.
He's a 3-year-old
Yeah.
boy. It's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yeah. No.
I'm like, this is my time. I
Yep.
only got so many of these, man.
Yep.
I'm not giving it up.
I love that. So we have a rule, like when we go to restaurants, number one, there's no screens. And I very rarely will check my phone, like when we're out at a restaurant and stuff. But when we eat dinner at home, which I'm a much bigger proponent of, like there are no screens at the table. We sit there, and sometimes it's a 10-minute meal, sometimes it's a 20-minute meal, sometimes we have friends over and it's a hour meal and all that. But like there's no screens while we're sitting here at the table. But I could get better at the car thing, because we definitely play the license plate game. We play the ABC game. And I love the dead spots for that, like, where there is no internet, because then screens don't really work.
Yeah.
But I'm a podcast guy, so I know for me, I could get, better at that and being more intentional. But on screens, like that's something I think we could talk about that is very interesting, because adults, right? We're adults. One of the biggest gifts God ever gave any of us was the ability to think for ourselves, right? I believe one of the biggest hindrance to thinking for ourselves are these devices and these screens. And we're adults, right? we went through school. We've gone through life. We've gone through ups, downs. We have all this experience. But if you're a kid and you're growing up with that, you're not really thinking for yourself, and you're not developing that ability. What are some, obviously you can limit it and say, don't do this. But what are some good things that they can use a screen for, in your opinion? Because I have mine. That is more helping them develop rather than just helping them zone.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because probably, in my opinion, and I know there's a lot of toddler parents out there that will agree with me, one of the most annoying people as a parent on the internet is probably the best for your children. And this is for toddlers. This isn't for like, I'm saying 2-3-year-olds, and then they tap out and they're done. It's Miss Rachel. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Miss Rachel.
No.
But she, an amazing woman. Great. I believe she's a teacher, amazing educator. Wears these blue overalls every single time. And every toddler parent knows her sing-songing voice. Just gets you. It's kind of like Barney back in the day, right? Yeah. But she teaches so well. And for me, that's fine. Like if Pierce sits and watches Miss Rachel for an hour, I'm happy, because he's learning stuff. He also likes this dude Blippi, where it's educational.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about. If their kids are going to be on the screens, then try to make it somewhat educational. There's educational games. I used to have my kids, when they were on their screens, there was I can't remember the name of the app now, but it was some kind of math app.
Was it Lumosity, possibly?
No, it wasn't that. It was I can't remember what it was. But their math teacher had recommended it, I think, when they were like in 2nd or 3rd grade. And so they would do that. I would ask them to do that. And, hey, mix in 20 minutes of math, and then you could have, 30 minutes or an hour of Roblox. But it's really challenging. It's hard to, even if you tell them, hey, try to go towards the educational stuff. Our kids are being raised by their algorithm.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful with that, because even as adults, like, I have friends that have, believed so much propaganda. And we're all susceptible to it. We're all
humans.
If I didn't believe God as much as I do, I would believe propaganda.
Sure.
Right? But to me, I try to look at everything through a biblical lens. Like, does this make biblical sense to me and my family? If not, it's trash. It doesn't matter. I have no control over it, right? I have no control over what 100 senators choose to do,
Right.
or what they tell me. And it's like the funny thing about it is, like, people still get up on soapboxes about politics.
Right.
When our grandparents told us that politicians lied.
Yeah.
Our parents told us politicians
Right.
lie, and now we think they're telling the truth. Like, they're still going to lie,
Yeah.
no matter what side you go for.
Right.
The one thing that is true is the Bible, and it's God. So if you look through that, and it might not, so my God is my God, and my Bible is my Bible. You might have a different belief system, but I guarantee you, if you look through life through the lens of your belief system, it's going to be a lot smoother. It's going to be a lot easier, and you're not going to fall for all this propaganda, which is important, and it's important in raising your kids as well, because, you know, no matter what your religion is, it kind of most religions kind of have the same philosophy, right? Be nice to people, give more than you receive, and leave the world a better place than you found it, right? Like, of course, there's a lot more, but if you break it down simply, every Buddha wasn't, you know, he's talking about peace. Everybody's talking about be nice to people, treat people the way you want to be treated, right? Help people. And if you instill those values in your children and say, hey, this is what our family believes in, and try to live your life with these values, they don't fall for as much of that internet propaganda. But it's hard, man.
Well, it is. I mean, we're all susceptible to it.
Yeah.
Certainly, certainly with the access to information at your fingertips every second. You know, back in the 90s when CNN was brand new, it was like, oh my gosh, it's 24-hour news. And like that's you know, a fraction of a percent of what we have today. It's like yesterday is probably the most polarizing, right? So you have this whole thing with Donald Trump and Elon, and you know, people can read the story, whatever. But Elon gets on there and says some very nasty things, and now Trump, and like the Tesla stock drops 14%. That should tell people that propaganda works. The fact that the stock dropped means that people were making emotional decisions based on tweets or X's or whatever they're called today, and who knows? It might all be just one false WWE thing. It may be true. It may not. Nobody knows. And when people kind of get up on that soapbox and they start just, you know, shaking their fist about, you know, this. Number one, nobody really cares what most people think. Let's just be honest. If I go on there and I just give all my opinions, maybe two people, and I'm probably related to both of them, actually give a rat's, you know, about what I think about it. So I'm not going to put that out there. It just doesn't make sense unless somebody asks, and of course. But like you're saying, when you filter everything through a biblical sense, that is what, for me, that's what's made the biggest difference in my life. Like, because I know I'm a man. I am susceptible to things like every man is. But I have to filter everything through, well, how am I supposed to see? How am I supposed to treat women? How am I supposed to treat others? How am I supposed to view myself in business? How am I supposed to take care of customers? How am I supposed to raise my kids? What are the things I'm supposed to teach them? It's all there. It's all in the book. It's not like, you know, you have to look very far. You today it's even easier. You know, you can, you know, there's the Bible app. You can literally open up that Craig Rochelle, I think, was the person that ended up, you know, creating that YouVision, and you can hop on there and search up any topic, and it'll just bam, scripture, and you can read about it. And then if you want more, great, I'm going to expand it, and you can even do a Google search. You can throw it to ChatGPT. You're going to get more information back on that, and it's going to tell you. And it's like that with any faith, because I, like you, I mean, I have a lot of faithful friends in different faiths.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Jewish friends.
Yeah.
I have a handful of Muslim friends. I've got some people that believe nothing. I've got a few Buddhist friends. And the ones that are like true to their faith, they're very nice people. Like, I enjoy them. And granted, we, you know, philosophically, when it comes to God and that, we don't necessarily agree on those things. But as far as how we treat people, goes back to what you were saying. And it's like when you're filtering everything through that lens, life's just better. I mean,
It's
as
so
a
much
dad,
better.
as a husband, as everything.
And like you were saying, you can coexist very nicely
Yeah.
with people of different faiths.
Yeah.
Because if you truly believe what you believe, you're going to try your best to outshine and outkind those other people.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Because you want them to be like, man, Sean, how come you're so happy? Well, it's because Jesus is in me. Man, well, maybe I might read that second half of the Bible after all.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, I might get into to some of that Jesus
Yeah.
stuff. But we also don't talk about it,
Yeah.
right? Like we talk about giving and loving and kindness and serving and all that stuff, but we don't sit around, never, I don't think. And I've, had cigars and, a couple bourbons with guys of different faiths, and we never sit there and talk about our individual faiths because we all know we're of different faiths.
Yeah.
So we talk about our kids.
Right.
We talk about the community organizations we're supporting, right?
Yes.
We're not sitting there trying to even start a conversation that might get decisive because we know that it might hurt somebody's feelings in the group. And that's not what it's about. It's about loving and supporting each man where we're at and discussing the things that we have in common. And for me, it's dads.
Yeah.
So it's always every conversation is
Right.
the things we have in common in our kids. How are your kids enjoying college? What, troubles or transitions are they going through right now?
And there's not like a lot of groups out there for dads. And just to hit on exactly your point, it's like we all have more in common than we are different. And if we just focused on what we have in common rather than the differences, the world would change pretty drastically,
So
right?
drastically.
Because I can get along with anybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had some nefarious characters throughout my life in different parts. I never had a problem with them. They had problems, and other people had problems with them. But I never had to disagree or not get along, unless it was something that you have to. And when you just focus on the commonalities, but when it comes to like being a dad, one of the things I've found is, number one, there's not like groups for dads. There's
No.
just not generally like unless you're in a small group, right, at church. Like there's options there, but usually that's couples, right?
Yeah, and that's still not dads. Yeah.
And girls don't want to talk about girl stuff in front of everybody, and guys don't want to talk about guy stuff in front of everybody. And like sometimes there has to be those platforms for both. Like, what have you found to be good sources for dads to talk with dads?
It was hard. Actually, when I first moved out to Arizona, my oldest daughter was just turning 1. And I was working from home back before working from home was a thing. So I was kind of like a stay-at-home dad. And there was nothing. I started a dad's group called AZ Dads, For Dads by Dads. And we lived in Kierland at the time in Scottsdale, and I lived across from this little park, and there's probably like 10 of us dads that would get together. We'd go to, maybe a little more than that over the years, but we'd play at this park, we'd go to the zoo, we'd go to Chick-fil-A, like kids eat free on Wednesdays, and they'd have like a little clown and stuff.
Yeah.
We would do all this cool stuff. We had a website and all that stuff. It was super fun, but there wasn't much other than that. Like it was our group, and the funny thing about it is we would just talk about our kids. That was it. Like that was the conversation.
Right.
Every now and then it would be like a little bit of sports here and there, but there were some guys in the group that didn't like sports. They were more hunters and fishermen, and there were, we had like an ex-pro golfer, so he liked just golf, but then other guys were like, I like baseball or basketball. So we've primarily talked about our children. And I've noticed that when you sit in on a mom's group or you observe mom's groups out in the wild, they talk more about other things, right? What's going on with this or with that. And it's not necessarily just talking about the kids. Because I've found that moms hold moms to like a higher standard that is unachievable by any parent in the world. Like unachievable, unattainable. I don't know where these super moms are at or how they're created, but there's no way that anybody can be that good of a mom.
Right.
And I think dads, we've always been like, oh, just the dad, just the dad.
Yeah.
So we don't hold ourselves in such like high regard. We're like, let's engage with our kids. Let's play with our kids. Let's get a little dirty. We're going to do the best we can. We're probably going to screw up and get yelled at by our wife, but it is what it is. My wife, Megan, when we first had Pierce, I'll never forget. She loves to post on social media, and I don't. I don't really post. I post my anniversary, my kids' birthdays, and Valentine's Day. That's it. Like if you look at my, screen, my timeline on my Instagram, it's all like wife, kids. That's it. And she posts all the time, all different stuff. And she had posted something. I can't remember what it was right now, but another mom, like in the mentions, was like, oh my gosh, I can't. Oh no, that's what it was grapes.
Oh, okay.
So I was giving my son grapes, and I was cutting them up, but in the shot that she took, you couldn't see the cut up ones off to the side, and somebody had commented like, I can't believe you're giving a toddler grapes, da 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 da, and then like people started like saying you should use this for grapes to cut them up this way and this, and I'm like, hold on a second, a guy, if I had posted that, no man ever would be like, you're parenting wrong, you're feeding your kids grapes wrong. I'm like,
I didn't even know you were supposed to cut them up, to be honest with you.
I'm like, well, he was little, he was really,
yeah.
And apparently he was so little, he shouldn't have even been eating grapes.
Oh.
Which I didn't know that was a thing either. I'm like, I figured grapes are fine. Same thing with popcorn. We were giving our kid and another mom, same thing. Said, I can't believe you're giving him popcorn. He's too young for popcorn. And we're like, it's flipping popcorn.
Yeah.
But
do you know how many people that have survived
popcorn through all these years?
Yeah.
Some would call it a treat.
Yeah.
But it's just different, like how men and women like parent or give parental advice.
Yeah.
Like I would never in a million years tell one of my buddies, you're doing that wrong.
Right.
You should do it this way. You can only lead by example.
Right.
I would show, same thing with spanking or, verbal confrontation. Like, it's not my place to tell my buddy how he should parent his kids. But moms, it's their place.
And I think it comes down to what I'd love to see, and who knows, maybe we'll create it. But I'd love to see a place where dads can go where the conversation, of course it's about the kids. We're all proud of our kids. We're all trying to be the best dads. But it's also about how, like, what we're doing, with life. How are you intentionally spending time while you're building a company, or you're working a lot more, or maybe you've had some health issues. How did you balance that? How did you, what are you going through? Because the one thing guys don't do well is they don't talk about their issues.
The important stuff. Yeah.
We all know that the suicide rate, is higher in men. And it's generally because they don't talk, and they don't, and I'm not saying that, you need to get in a knitting circle and start sharing every problem you've ever had, but sometimes it's important to have, and I think dads is a great foundation for it, because it's hard to talk to someone that doesn't have kids and be able to share things the same way that you're going through. They just don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock, and it's like some people can't have kids, so I'm not knocking that, but it's like you and I could sit there, we could have lunch, and I'd be like, bro, it's crazy, man. My kids are in summer, and I want to make sure that I'm intentional and I'm doing my one of the 18 summers the right way, but my company is just growing like crazy, which means I got to put a lot of attention in it right now, and I'm having a hard time balancing it. Have you ever been through anything like that? And then you can be like, yes, no, but we can then share ideas, and maybe you're like, oh, you know what, dude, I read this book a long time ago. Check it out, it might help. And now we're sharing ideas about something that we're going through, that we're trying to make, or you know what, I like to have a drink here and there, but I don't want my kids to I don't want them to drink a whole lot, and maybe they don't ever drink. That would be great. It's like, should I just stop completely? It's like you're having those types of conversations that aren't normal. Like you just don't have that every day. But it'd be kind of cool to have a a group, and then share the wins.
Yeah.
There's always the wins are awesome too,
They are.
because you had shared a story a while back, or before we started, that we won't get into, but you had shared that story with me, and I know that if I had that same thing happen with my kids, you'd be the first person I called.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, what do you think I should do about this? You told me some things that were going on that were kind of similar, and then you can share advice.
Yeah.
Like the phone a friend to a dad that's been there and done that, I think would be one of the greatest things out there. So
Yeah. I had a podcast for a while, quite a few years, called Dads with Swag.
okay.
And towards the beginning of COVID, with the Black Lives Matter movement and all this stuff going on, I stopped the podcast. I didn't feel that it was the proper time for my voice to be heard. I think that at that moment, God wanted a lot of other voices to be heard, and mine didn't need to be heard at that time. And I can get on a soapbox and I could preach like no other, and I would do that on my podcast. And I would always bring in different dads, and that's exactly what we would talk about. They'd have to say, give me an example of a success with your parenting. Give me an example of a failure with your parenting. And then also, I'd ask the question like, what was the biggest lesson that your dad taught you? And it could even be, because a lot of people in my generation also came from divorced parents. So a lot of the answers I got were not things that the dad taught them that were necessarily positive, right? But for example, like, the person's father was never available, never around, always working, right? So the lesson that this dad took from that is be present, be intentional. Make sure that before I impregnate somebody, I'm willing to spend the rest of my life and my children's life with that person.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're stuck together.
Yeah.
There's birthdays, there's weddings, there's grandchildren, there's grandchildren's birthdays,
Yeah.
there's holidays. Like, you don't think about all of that generational commitment when you're going to marry somebody or have kids with somebody. It is generational, multi-generational, and you have to be committed to that, because if not, you're going to screw up. You're going to make it uncomfortable, right? Because I know I have friends where it's like, I have a friend, he came on the podcast, and we were doing kind of like a Mother's Day podcast, and he kind of changed his voice a little, and we used a fake name because he didn't want anybody to know. But he has a mom and a stepmom, and he has a daughter and a wife, and it was Mother's Day. And it's like, who does he celebrate, right? Does he celebrate his wife and help his daughter create a memorable Mother's Day for his wife? Does he celebrate his mom, who he has a good relationship with, but not a tremendous relationship with, and she also lives out of town, so when she comes to town, things get a little cuckoo? Or does he celebrate his stepmom, who lives a few blocks away, and it's always steady waters, right? Because she's always there, and it's steady.
Yeah.
And it's like, whose Mother's Day is it? Like, what does he do? Because he can't have his mom and his stepmom in the same room, because it's just going to explode. And is that fair to his daughter, that like both grandparents can't be there, and this grandma's going to get mad if the daughter calls that one grandma, and then this one's going to say, well, that's not your real grandma, and it's like, whose day is it? And it's like stuff like that, to where he knew, okay, when I choose my wife and I choose to have kids, it's gotta be forever, because I don't want to deal with this again. This is craziness. So not all the lessons we learn from our dads are necessarily like, how to swing a bat or how to catch a fish.
For sure.
And so that was the cool thing about that pod, was it really allowed guys to kind of dig deep and say, celebrate the wins, but also celebrate the failures too, because I can learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to share our mistakes and not be afraid of them, or because It's definitely a learning experience. And they say, like, I think as men, we know in business, like, we learn from our mistakes more than we learn from our wins.
Sure.
But people don't tell us that in parenting.
No.
Right? And we do. Like, the mistakes I've made with my kids, I've learned more from than, anything else.
Yeah. No, the failing forward concept works in all aspects of
All
your
aspects of life,
right? What are some of the biggest things you learned from your dad?
Oh man. So I have a weird story. So my biological father and my mother were family friends, close family friends. My biological father is a few years older than my mom. And my mom is one of 9. And my biological dad was good friends with my mom's older sisters and older brother. And they all kind of hung together in like a group of like 8 or 10. And my dad was close friends with my mom's parents and the whole family. And my mom had a huge crush on my dad, right? She was a little girl, he was, huge crush on him. And he got drafted, and my mom freaked out. And he made a promise to a young girl that he loved and cared a lot about. And he promised her that he will come back, he will be alive, and when he comes back, he'll take her to her senior prom. And she was probably like a sophomore or junior at the time. I don't know how old she was. And she held on to that. And he did. He came back. He's alive and well. And she made him take her to the prom. And 9 months later, here comes Sean. Because things happen on prom night that happen on prom night, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully dads of daughters, like I've warned my daughter, don't give it up on prom night. It's a cliche, right?
Yeah.
Be more intentional with your sex life.
Yeah.
So he had to do the right thing, right? So he married my mom. And a few years later, they got divorced. My mom got remarried, and it was kind of weird because back in those days, the courts just did what the mom wanted to do. The dad really had no say. So at that time, my biological dad got to see me like every other weekend. But it was really at my mom's discretion. And you learn that later in life, right? Because for a long time, I have like these huge abandonment issues, right? Because I thought my dad wouldn't see me, right? Because as a kid, I'm keeping track. I know whose weekend is what.
Right.
And I blamed my dad for many years for not wanting me, not wanting to be with me. So that was one thing that I wanted to do with my kids, was always be there. I was never going to be the last person to pick my kids up. My wife will laugh now. Like, there's no way. If I'm like close to being on time to pick my kids up from school, I'm stressed out. Like, I will run red lights before I'm late to pick my kids up from school because I don't want them to feel that, what I had to feel, like sitting on a curb waiting for my dad to come, not knowing that my mom had told my dad, oh, we have plans this weekend, so you're not going to get to see him, right? Because nobody told me that.
Right.
Because here I am, 4 years old, 5 years old, thinking that my dad didn't want me. And then, so that was the lesson I learned from him, right? Was show up, be early, let your kids know you love them all the time. Then from my stepfather, the thing that I learned the most from him was kindness. So he was a very unkind person. My mom thought her second marriage, she married for security. And sometimes when you have that sense of security, it comes with a lot of violence and a lot of not good. You're safe and you're secure and you have a lot of money, but there's emotional abuse, physical abuse, and all that stuff. So he taught me, one, I'm not going to hit my kids. And it's funny because I always threatened that I'm going to give them a spanking, but I never would have. And now my 3-year-old son is like, spank me, spank me. I'm like, God dang it, you calling my bluff, you're only 3. But to try to be like the best dad that I could be, the best version of myself, and to ask for forgiveness because I know I'm going to mess up. I know that I'm going to do wrong. I know that I'm going to say the wrong thing or parent the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Make sure that my kids have access to mental health because I think even at a young age, it's important that they have a safe place to share their feelings because you don't always want to talk to your parents. As much as we pride ourselves on the fact that our kids will want to talk to us, there's not every topic that they want to. My oldest daughter, she'll talk to me about anything.
Yeah.
Right. We'll talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. My youngest daughter, not so much. She prefers to talk to her mom. Even if she talks to her mom, I'm not quite sure. But she won't open up to me about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I also make sure that she goes to therapy so she has a person that she can open up to. So that would probably be the thing that I learned most from him is to just be a more softer man, still protective of my family, but just be a little bit more gentler in my approach and be open to mental health because we all need that. I was very anti-mental health. I could pray my problems away. And you can't. You can't pray all problems away.
That's very true.
God gave people the gift of listening, and we need to use those people that he puts in our lives, that he blessed with those kind of gifts and those talents.
Well, and wisdom isn't just like, jetted in you like a lightning bolt through your spirit. Wisdom is generally given to you through somebody else anyway. That's why it's important to be able to share ideas and to listen to people.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate sharing that. My dad, I'm very fortunate, and I will say I know my dad listens to every podcast. He might be the only one actually. No, but he does, and he taught me 3 things. Number 1, he was always open in conversation. Always, he would talk to me about anything, and that was a huge thing. And then number 2, like he would always try to just be there. Growing up, he had me at 19. My mom was 18, and they never got married, and I got great relationships with both of them. They still have a great relationship, but at 19, like he had to do whatever he had to do. So he went and got a job working at the mine, like my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my uncle, everybody worked at the mine, and he busted his butt. And he, what was really cool that I observed later when I was like 13, 14, is that he took a massive pay cut to get an apprenticeship while he was there. And, while he was doing that, he was working graveyards, and he was always do everything he could, man. If he was awake, I mean, sometimes, he'd come home after, but whatever, we'd throw the ball and all that stuff. So being intentional of being with me, but watching what he did in his life when he decided to take a pay cut to get that apprenticeship because he wanted a better life and he wanted to exceed, because he could have gone to college. He's very, very smart. He could have done very well, but he took the apprenticeship. He became an electrical engineer, and then that allowed him to come up here, and he had some amazing jobs, and he's extremely bright when it comes to that stuff. And it provided an amazing life for the family, but it allowed me to see something bigger than a small town. And there's nothing wrong. I love that small town. I still claim Safford. As Justin Gaethje does, the fighter. But he gave me the opportunity to come up here, and I saw he would always work towards getting somewhere better. And for me, it's like ingrained in me. That's just how I try to do everything. Right now, I'm in the middle of getting my CHFC, which I don't need to do what I do. However, it's going to allow me to serve my clients at a better level. It's going to have a knowledge base. It's going to be able to open up to different clients I can't currently work with. And I know that's going to be able to help more people. So I saw him do that, and for me, like those are things that are just I'm thankful for. And there's some things obviously I learned negatively that he would tell you, from him as well. But it's the father figure is so important, and you had alluded to it a while back in the conversation when you were saying there, the father's kind of like just like to the side. It's always the mom. moms are extremely important, and there's no negating that. Dads are also extremely important because it gives a certain strength and it gives a certain confidence to the kids, guys and girls. Because, I mean, I have a daughter. I want my daughter to marry the type of guy I am working every day to become. That's who I want her to marry. But I got to exemplify that, right?
Well, and that's the funny thing about it, because I used to say the same thing. A woman will marry, when your daughter grows up, she will marry a man just like you.
Yeah.
It's your choice what version of that it's going to be.
Yeah.
My daughters will marry a guy just like me. Chances are he's going to have a short temper. He's going to fail at times. He's probably going to be very religious and very family oriented. And she's going to have to deal with that with the man. She's going to have to, let him know, hey, you got to be better for our kids. Your temper's got to come down a little, right? Because, and you have to be a better example. And then if she has, daughters, and my son-in-law has a daughter, then he'll be a little bit better example. So then she'll marry somebody that's a little bit better, But it's funny, if you put myself and my father-in-law in a room together, we're very similar people, right? We're very similar people. And it is. But as a dad, it's our responsibility to show what type of person, we want our daughters to marry. And like my daughters will not, my oldest did a couple times, and I got on her about it. She dated a young man. It was her first boyfriend, and he wouldn't open the car door for her. And her whole life, I've opened the car door. Even to this day, the back of my truck is on child lock, so girls can't get out of the car by themselves. I have to come open the door for you. Some people can say it's misogynistic or sexist, whatever all these were. It doesn't matter to me. Chivalry will never be dead, and I empower women to be the greatest example they could ever be. I'm the first to say that women are smarter than men. Women are better business people than men, because look at, like you just alluded to, Trump and Elon, right? Like, come on, you get your feelings hurt just a little bit, and you guys are doing all this crybaby stuff. A woman in business would never do that. There is no way a woman in business would get in a Twitter fight with somebody else. She's like, forget that.
They'll just outwork you.
Yeah, they'll outwork you, outthink you, outsmart you. Like, so I'm the first to say that women are the superior sex. But still, I can open your door for you. I can still pay for a meal. Because once again, it goes back to that biblical way that I live my life. So my daughter did date a knucklehead that didn't open her door. But she learned, and it was hard for her to insist on it. And I say, you stand there until he opens it. And if he doesn't, after a while, you call an Uber. Plain and simple. So, but I do believe that dads, and once again, it goes back to the biblical way of, living life. God created man, created woman. They were to be married and reproduce. We have to build the family together, right? Because statistically, they've shown, men that are in households without dads, like higher crime rate, higher suicide rate, higher, imprisonment rates, all of these things. But it's going to be the same thing if we have children in the home without a mom, right? Like, you need both. You need the soft and the hard. You need the carrot and the stick. Like, it has to be the way he created it.
Right.
And then it works out, not perfect, but better, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason it's the blueprint.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I can, if we were to look up, let's just say the top, 20 most successful people financially, right? We were to look at the men and the women, and we were to dig back into their past. The thing that we will find as a commonality is they had a very strong figure of a father or a mother, sometimes both, that influenced them.
Yeah.
And many times they had a father and mother that was together their entire life. Not always the case, of course, but like it's a common thread. And I think that blueprint just, and I shouldn't say just wealth, no, success in any endeavor in life, charities, these types of things. Yeah. There's that commonality, like that family core is important. And there is no perfection. There is no perfection, right? We're not going to be perfect dads. Moms aren't going to be perfect moms. Kids aren't going to be perfect kids. However, if you constantly go back to the blueprint, the Bible, and you start, okay, well, how should I handle this? And you talk with some friends that believe in the same things, and you get their advice, and you're all coming from the same core of information, that's how you can get better. And generationally, you hit on that a second ago, and I love that, because generationally, we should be getting better. I want my grandkids to be raised better than I'm raising my kids, because I don't know what I'm doing wrong necessarily. Yeah. And I try to correct when I do know what I'm doing wrong, but I hope my kids see that. They take the good from me, and then they're like, yeah, that was terrible. That was awful at that. I'm going to be better at that. And then it's just over and over and over. So, man, I appreciate you coming on today. And I know you actually have some courses, because you have, a coaching that you said that you're selective on the coaching side, but you have some courses that are pretty amazing. You want to share with people how they can reach out or any of that stuff?
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to have an opportunity to kind of plug something, then I'm going to go the nonprofit route.
Oh, okay.
So I'd prefer to plug our family foundation. If I was going to plug something, since we're talking about dads and dad stuff, and I know women can do it as well, because my wife does it, my sister-in-law does it, my daughters do it, they all shoot guns. But one of our biggest events is a sporting clay tournament.
Oh, cool.
We host a sporting clay tournament up at Ben Avery every year. It is the best charity event that anybody's going to ever go to, right? You wear your casual clothes. It only takes 3 hours. You're not spending all day at a golf tournament. You're not having to dress up for a banquet dinner. You're outdoors, you're getting some fresh air, and you're shooting some shotguns. And if you don't know how to shoot shotguns, it doesn't matter, because we have shotguns for you, and it's the easiest thing to do. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun. So I guess if I was going to plug something, go to, I think it's piercefamilyfoundation.com, and Clays for a Cause. You can Sean Alfonso, find me on Instagram, DM me, I'll send you the information, whatever it is. But Clays for a Cause, this year we're doing it October 25th at Ben Avery.
Okay.
So get your reservations. If you have a company, sponsor a station. We have station sponsors instead of whole sponsors.
Yeah.
We just kind of go station to station. You shoot 5 shots at 10 stations, so you shoot 50 rounds. We provide all the ammo. If you don't have a gun, we have one for you. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to just get out there, and it's so different. And it's a great way to raise money. We're kind of changing our mission with the Pierce Family Foundation, and we were raising money for children at the home. I think we're going to switch to mental health awareness, possibly suicide prevention, but we're not 100% sure yet. By the time Clays comes around, we'll have it narrowed down. But yeah, reach out to me.
Cool.
Reach out to my wife. But yeah, Clays for a Cause. If I was going to plug something, that's what it would be.
Awesome. Well, I'm pretty sure I'll be in town, so I'll be there.
There you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
You let me know about the sponsorship.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you some info.
I'll help with that.
Perfect.
But no, thanks again for coming on, guys. I know you got a lot out of this, and women might have tuned out, 30 minutes into this, but if you're a dad and you listen to this and you got something out of it, share it with another dad. And reach out to either of us too. If you want someone to talk to, and like we were talking about, just someone that you can, run ideas by, or what you're going through and have circumstances. Not to say we're going to have all the answers, and you know what, we may ask you questions as well. But reach out. If you're looking for those types of relationships, and you're a dad and you feel kind of like you're in a silo. So I appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will see you next time.